So Allison, just remind me, Paul Worrell is excused, and who were the other two?
Carrie Catalano and Joe Lupia.
Okay, thank you.
Grab my phone, so it's right here nearby in case we do need it. In case anyone texts, I'll be right back.
Hey, we are live.
Hello, everybody. This is the Comprehensive Planning Steering Committee for the town of Manlius. We're going to wait a minute or two to make sure all of our members can arrive.
Sarah, remind me again, how many committee members do we have?
I think there's 15 altogether, but we know that three
Right.
are not here, so.
Including us, I
waiting.
think. We're part of the 15, I think, aren't we?
I thought so, yeah.
I think so.
So I can think of a couple of people who have not yet joined, but if they don't join soon, we'll just start without them and they can hop on when they get here.
Yeah, we've got Don Gates, and I'm not sure if Casey is joining us. And here's Marissa.
Okay. Welcome, everybody. This is the Town of Manlius Comprehensive Planning Steering Committee. And we are joined today by a couple of new members that I wanted to take a minute to introduce. So I'll start out with our town supervisor, John Deere. Want to say a few words?
Yeah, hey everybody. I just wanted to hop on for the meeting, listen in for a little while, and just really say thank you to everybody for all the work they've been doing so far, and excited to listen in on the conversation and offer any insight I might be able to. So thanks.
Heather Waters is our co-chair, and so if you want to introduce yourself and then introduce our interim.
Sure, I'd be happy to. Hi, I'm Heather Waters. I'm a town councilor. This is my third year serving of a 4-year term, and it's been wonderful to work with you all. And for everybody watching at home, thank you so much for tuning in. Please stay in touch with us. Comprehensive planning at townofmanlius.org and the comprehensive planning section of our website, which is accessible at townofmanlius.org. And I'd love to introduce to you now to our brand new intern, a fantastic new colleague named Colin. Colin, do you want to tell us a little bit more about you?
Yeah, sure thing. So my name's Colin. I'm 29 years old. I've spent most of my life here in Manlius, a few little jaunts elsewhere, but recently decided to go back to school to pursue a degree in urban planning. And so I'm doing that through Arizona State University and taking advantage of Starbucks's college achievement program. So that's 100% tuition coverage for first-time degree seekers, which is nice, but excited to get involved in everything planning.
Good.
Perfect. Thank you. So at this point, I think what we'll do is turn it over to our consultants, Grace DeSantis and Keith Awald, who are going to facilitate a discussion, except it looks like Keith just dropped off. So hopefully he can return back. The internet, the wind is making the internet weird. So for people, if you're getting a lot of sporadic signal, if you turn your picture off, your sound will be better. And hopefully that might make you be able to stay on. But Grace, do you want to go ahead and do the PowerPoint, and we'll go from there?
Absolutely. All right. So we'll start off with our agenda for today. As you can see on the screen, hopefully you all can see my screen. We have an agenda up here. We're going to start off reviewing our project process for completing the comprehensive plan. So where we are to date, what we have planned for the future. We're also going to review some additional public outreach activities that have been conducted by the town since our last meeting, which was back in October. Then we'll review the community profile section of the comprehensive plan as it stands to date. Then we'll discuss the vision and goals section of the comprehensive plan, and then also complete or facilitate a breakout session group in which the comprehensive plan committee members will break up into different groups via Zoom, and we'll actually have a workshop session in developing objectives and policies and goals to feed into the comprehensive plan process. And then we'll come back after the breakout sessions and we'll talk next steps. So first off, for process update, we just want to start off by congratulating the town of Manlius. If you aren't aware yet, they have been awarded a Climate Smart Communities grant through the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation. So it's a super exciting award. It's going to help the town in completing a climate action plan that addresses both government operations and the community as a whole. And this award is going to impact the process for the comprehensive plan. We do plan on completing the climate action plan in concurrence with the comprehensive plan. So the two documents will kind of play off one another. The information developed as part of the climate action planning process will impact some of the information that gets fed into the comprehensive plan and vice versa. So again, congratulations to the town. It's a very exciting project to be working on, and I think it's a very opportune time considering that we're already working on the comprehensive plan update. So in terms of schedule, so far we have completed a public workshop and community survey dating back to the spring of 2021. We also have had 2 steering committee meetings so far and completed several different focus groups and study groups, which we'll review later in this presentation. And as of this past winter, we have been working on drafting the introduction and community profile sections of the comprehensive plan. And I'll scroll through the report and kind of give you guys a sneak peek of what that looks like so far. Looking towards the future, because of the Climate Smart Communities grant, 2022 is looking a little bit flexible for us still. We do still anticipate completing the comprehensive plan within the next year, but some of these steps might be, a bit flexible depending on how quickly the comprehensive plan, the climate action plan is completed. But as of right now, we're still on schedule. We plan to continue drafting the community profile this winter. And then as of today, we're kicking off the development of the vision and goal framework as well. So as you can see, many focus groups have been completed so far as part of the comprehensive planning process. So we've done a public workshop and a community survey. And then after that, we went into focus groups. So affordable housing, historic preservation, environmental sustainability, parents and caregivers, youth, town staff, renters, seniors, and farmers are all the focus groups that have been completed to date. Some of those were facilitated by Barton and LaJudas, and then some of those were also facilitated by the town and steering committee members. So we already reviewed the findings of these focus groups in our last steering committee meeting, so I'm not going to go over those again today. However, I do want to point out that 3 different community outreach activities have taken place since we last met in October, and those were the launch of the Civil Space website and surveys, the Old Erie Canal listening session, and the technology focus group. And all of those have been completed by the town since October. So the Old Erie Canal listening session took place on January 20th, and this really overviewed the canal's infrastructure, recreational opportunities on the trails in Poolsbrook Park, and New York Park's maintenance plans. And recommendations that came out of the listening session included considering tourism as an economic development opportunity within the town, adding a link to the canal site on the town's website, and also seeking grant funding to enhance canal access. In the technology focus group, which took place on February 1st, some key findings included, expanding internet broadband so it's a bit more reliable, valuing human interaction, but also acknowledging that technology can make some processes more efficient. And that should be something that the town is considering. And also making sure that any future technology upgrades are flexible and modular as well to accommodate rapidly changing technologies available to the town. And then some recommendations were to consider community broadband rather than the standard subscription service broadband. Also preparing for electric and autonomous vehicles and the introduction of those in New York State, as well as potentially the town of Manlius. And also including more flexibility in the zoning for makers and other types of businesses such as those. Other topics to be explored in the near future include a stormwater study group, quarry study group, an Indigenous peoples listening session, a sidewalks and greenways focus group, an arts and culture focus group, and a business development focus group. So these will be further defined in the future and scheduled and planned for by the town and with you all, the steering committee. So now we would like to collect your comments and thoughts if you have any so far, specifically on the topics that have been covered so far by community outreach activities, topics that we're planning on covering in the coming months, and any thoughts that you have on some of the findings and recommendations, or potentially other topics that you feel haven't been addressed and should be addressed. So I'll open the floor if anybody has a comment. And I'd also be happy to scroll back to those slides. I know that was kind of quick, so if you'd like me to go back at all, I can do that as well.
If you don't say something, we're going to call on people.
So this is Rick Hall. I guess my question still would remain. So even with the focus groups and the surveys, we still have only really gotten any kind of feedback from a very small percentage of the town residents. So I think there was a talk about each one of these focus groups was going to come up with questions for another survey. Is that correct?
So I believe that was being facilitated through the Civil Space website. Is that correct, Sarah?
Yes, and the surveys are there. We have realized that we are not driving traffic to see the surveys or take the surveys. So that is actually an initiative that we're picking up. We put them there, but it didn't work. So now we have to push them out more aggressively. So the focus groups that met in the fall did each make a little survey, and they're there, but it's not working to really attract a lot of engagement with other people. So we have to do a much better job of pushing those surveys out into the world.
Is there a target number of residents, a percentage of numbers of residents that we want to reach? Usually with surveys, when you're seeking public opinion, you want a certain percentage of the public to respond in a certain cross-section? We have data on that?
Yeah, I think our goal was actually 10% of the population, which is high for a survey, but we were lofty in our ideas. So I don't know that we will get there, but that is where we were trying to get to.
Yeah, I mean, typically for a town the size of, with the population size of Manlius, 10% is certainly a lofty goal. 3 to 5% is typically considered fairly successful when it comes to these types of surveys, Survey Monkey, or any type of community survey. Sarah, what dialogue has there been about the what types of options we have or mechanisms we have to advertise outside of what we already have, that these surveys are out there and accessible?
Yeah, we have, I don't know if Heather can speak to it. We have put a couple of things in the Eagle Bulletin, which is the local paper.
Yeah.
And I see she's here, so I'm going to let her answer that part.
Hi, thank you so much. Yeah, I put on my video in case. Yeah, I put on my video. So I think that what we've done is, as chairs, we've tried to be consistent about providing narrative updates, but a communications plan that would push out requests for responses to the surveys, ads, really, if you will, both on social media, but also perhaps in the Eagle Bulletin or something we've discussed wouldn't be too unreasonable cost-wise. We also are going to utilize the distribution services that the school districts provide. So being able to buy tokens or buy the distribution of getting into Peach Jar for the FM school district. And Kay had mentioned the name of the ESM school district's service. And so that really, I anticipate that what we'll want to do is make sure that there are surveys for all of the topics, since we're nearing the end of the organized sort of focus groups and listening sessions and study groups, and that we can roll out a few more of the surveys and do that sort of broad advertisement. Does anyone have any other thoughts? Or John, did you have ideas too?
No, that was kind of what I was thinking specifically, and I think too. I don't know if we've tried it yet, but when we have more of it out there, going on to Nextdoor, I think would be a really good idea, because I know that's a pretty effective tool for neighbors that they're using. So if we could figure out a good way to get to all those, that'd be great.
Bill Kirchhoff is one of our members, and he was the person who initiated the Nextdoor community and has been building it over time. So for our area, so yeah, that was just an oversight that I didn't mention that, because that's on the list for sure. Thank you.
Kay, I see that your hand was raised. Did you want to say something?
Yeah, thank you. I know last time I had suggested maybe using social media as means to navigate some of that public, interaction, and then get them to actually do the survey that way. But also one of the themes that we've kind of brought up a few times is the seniors and their inability not inability, I should say. It's harder for them to navigate the digital world in terms of accessing those things. Like, I'm always happy to sit down with my mother-in-law, but it definitely takes a lot more steps. And I think even if there was an option of a paper copy, even at the libraries, I think sometimes there's a certain portion of our population that would feel much more comfortable with that. But I also, like, again, just to double back, because also with the technology, to embed one of those surveys within a social media platform, whether it's a Facebook or Twitter, I think you'd have a huge response.
I saw something, Kay, that's such a good idea. I saw something when people were trying to get responses to the Department of Transportation's information about the 81, they had these almost pre-printed postcards. So I wonder if we could do postcards with, topics or something on, different colored postcards that have different topic areas, and then people could write them in. That could get expensive, but if we don't put postage on there, and people could drop them into a box at the libraries, that might be a great way to capture folks.
So I think we have an action step of pushing these surveys out. So all of you can help with that with your own social media. The surveys are all there on the website. You can just nab one and push it out. And I think we'll work with our consultants to come up with a communication strategy to do a little bit of paid advertising to make sure that we're getting these information, the opportunity to complete the survey in front of a higher percentage of people.
Grace, is there anything that Social Pinpoint could help with in that regard? I mean, it's really just another social media platform in essence, right?
Yes, not in terms of advertising.
Right.
I would say that having personal invitations can be helpful. So if you know community groups, you can certainly email them and ask them to distribute information to their networks about the surveys. We found success with that. I think a personal invitation often captures people's interest and investment in the plan as well. So that would be another recommendation I would have. If you have an association with the community group, send them the link to the website and let them know about the surveys.
And that was just another suggestion I was going to say, is utilizing our religious groups. That's a huge, if you even get to each of the churches, or I know that sounds, but even if we got to our own places of religious worship or what have you, I think that you're reaching an untapped resource.
Thank you for sharing that.
Are there like any sort of advertising materials or like flyers that we could leave behind at, churches, things like that?
Yeah, I think in our comms plan, that would be great. When we did the first survey, what we did was we had an email list to blanketed most, I think, of the publicly available contact information for faith communities in the town, and all the libraries, the senior centers, the Y, daycares we knew of. I mean, the large groups. So we have that distribution list, and there were only 2. We didn't get a high response without sort of personal, the food banks too, but we didn't get a response really from the faith communities, from the churches. But we did see that you can place an ad, for example, in the bulletin of the Immaculate Conception Church, and that would reach many people. And I think having members of the different congregations that are connected to us, who are willing to raise their hand and say, here's the flyer for comprehensive planning surveys, I'm leaving it here, during the coffee hour afterwards, or whatever it is, I think that would be really helpful. So let's put that into the consideration for the comms plan too. And I wonder, Sarah, if we want to ask steering committee members who might want to be involved in the communications work in a more formal way, if we could ask them, if we could ask everyone to let us know.
Yeah, I think there's a little bit of design work here to make something that's appealing and then has like a QR code or some other features about how to that would be a leave behind piece or an advertisement that a church bulletin or the library bulletin could put in.
Yeah, we have 2 things. We have sort of the template that was given to us by BNL early on, and we have a bit of a branding within Canva that allows us to lay out stuff with the Town of Manlius comprehensive planning kind of logo that we worked with. We have 2 things going, where we had Envision Manlius as a name maybe for the project early on that BNL sort of suggested, but we haven't really gone further with that and kind of rolled it out or talked about it, and have just used sort of that green bar of comprehensive planning as the way to recognize what it is.
Right. So I guess let's say that there's an opportunity for 3 people to be a communications committee and work with you, Heather, to, put something together that actually has sort of a beginning and a middle and an end that would help get these surveys out. So it's not the same as what we're going to do in the fall to get comments on the plan. This is a spring activity to get participation in the surveys.
Yeah, we could certainly help, develop any, kind of compositional PR, flyer material. I know we've got something started, or we had something that we generated back in the beginning of the process, but certainly let us know if you need any help there. I mean,
Thank you.
Yeah, that would be great.
Yeah,
You
we had developed flyers for the public workshop.
right.
So something along those lines we could create again.
Yeah, and we have that sort of trifold too.
Yeah.
That's right.
So we do have some pieces for this subset to work on. I'm happy to work with folks on that, and I will ask Carrie for sure, because I know she was pretty interested in it before. So she's not here to beg off of that, but I will commit. I'll just ask her. Anyone
So
else?
what would you, this is Rick, what would you think of doing a 5 or 10 minute presentation to each of the 3 fire departments and each of the 3 senior centers? And it doesn't have to be lengthy, but even if you just went and asked them to fill out the surveys and explain what we've tried to do and what we're trying to get more people involved. You got Paul and Bobby that are members of their respective fire departments. Maybe there are others, I don't know about the churches, but if there's Rotaries, if there's Lions clubs, if there's other things, just getting some people to talk about it might stimulate other people to do it. I don't know.
Rick, it sounds like you'd be awesome on this comms committee. Want to join us?
No. I said my name was Bobby.
Okay, well, let's follow up on that, but I think that's a great idea. And I think if we are able to almost have a script to say, here's what you say, where you do the stand up at the meeting, saying, hi, here I am, here's what this is about, and here's the flyer, or here's the box, and you can put your postcards in it, whatever it is. That would be great.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks so much. What's our timeline, Sarah, do you think?
Well, I think if our next meeting is April, I think we need to have the plan developed and in process by then. It doesn't mean that because we're still doing focus groups, it won't be finished by then, but I think we need to have our communication plan in flow by April.
Okay, so that should maybe be fully fleshed out, and the distribution is happening maybe and is well underway by our meeting, and the communications folks can report on it as part of the agenda.
Yeah, I think that'd be great. And then we'll continue on. I would think, at least up until June, we're still really in the data collection sort of mode. We can continue to collect survey information.
Yeah, I had said, I don't know what other people think about this, but I had said that we should think about the July 4th parades and events around the July 4th weekend as a way to publicly share what we have in terms of, either pieces of a draft or something like that we should think about public presentations at that point, because we will have such a high density of folks and eyeballs who could be people who could participate.
Okay. So I think a float in the parade with a band.
I don't think it's a terrible idea if B&L wants to do its very first July 4th day, a July 4th parade, a giant float.
We do have a B&L band.
Oh, you do? Great.
I'm not in it, but there's one.
Well, I don't want to commit your folks to July 4th, but that sounds cool.
Maybe we can get them to write a theme song.
There you go. That would be a way to really expand your services, Keith. Into a request for proposal, songwriting. Thank you so much, everybody.
Any other thoughts on focus groups and outreach, or do we want to move forward and take a look at the community profile? All right, we'll move forward. So as I mentioned before, we've started drafting the introduction and community profile for your comprehensive plan. Before we take a tour of the community profile, I just want to mention this is a living document. So we have parts of it drafted, some parts of it are not drafted. As you continue to collect public input, we will be incorporating that into the development of the community profile. So don't be startled if you feel like something is missing that should be in there. We're just trying to, incorporate some of the feedback that you're getting into the drafting and formulation of the community profile. But since we have some of it drafted, I do want to show you what we have, just give you an idea of where we're at, what this document is going to look like, and how it's shaping up.
Yeah, and I guess, Grace, just before you kind of dive in here, and I apologize, my laptop had a reboot here as we started getting going, but just real quick, the community profile, and I know we've had this conversation before with the committee, but it really, as Grace mentioned, it is a living document. And I think Sarah mentioned a couple of minutes ago that, as we, as your facilitators of your planning process, assist you guys with pulling your comprehensive plan together, there's going to be things that we're going to be doing behind the scenes, and we're going to start to talk about some of that here in a bit tonight. But the things like the community profile really is like a snapshot of where the town is today. So what we try to do is document as much as we can, and we can supplement it with information and data as it comes in over the course of the process. So it's not like the community profiles in draft form and it's done. It's always, as Grace said, it's a living document. As information comes in and we coordinate with other agencies and continue to collect information, we just continue to expand on it over time. And then again, as we're kind of talking about goals and objectives and your community development framework and diving into, those types of things and action strategies that people feel are important to build into the plan, that's not to say we can't go back and still add things to the community profile if people feel that it's important. So I just wanted to state that here before, like Grace said, if you feel like something's missing right now, don't get alarmed.
All right. Here we go. So starting off with the introduction, we have a brief background into the town of Manlius and also an introduction to comprehensive planning. So we have a background and a purpose section that basically state, this is why comprehensive plan, or why the town of Manlius is creating a comprehensive plan. This is what the comprehensive plan intends to do. It is provided for by New York state law and helps to support other planning initiatives like your zoning codes throughout the town. And we also talk about other documents that are supported by this comprehensive plan. So as of right now, we have reviewed the village's comprehensive plans for those that have them. We also reviewed the town of Manlius's greenhouse gas inventory, the New York State Agricultural Districts Program, and Onondaga County's 2019 Multi-Jurisdictional Hazard Mitigation Plan. So we have a brief summary of each of those plans in the introduction, and in reviewing those, we kind of pulled over some data and findings into the plan, and will continue to help us in the development of your vision and goals section as well. We also provide a brief overview of the benefits of comprehensive planning. Specifically, your comprehensive plan can help you in your grant funding application processes. It also can be a tool for updating and administering your local land use laws, like your zoning code. Your comprehensive plan can also help to inform your town's budgeting decisions and also to inspire and implement social and economic initiatives. We will also have a public input summary in the beginning of the comprehensive plan. We haven't developed this yet because you're still conducting a lot of public input at this time. However, we will be having an appendix to the comprehensive plan that has, all of that input that you've collected and all of the summaries from the focus groups compiled into one appendix. So while we'll have a brief introduction to your public input in the beginning of the plan, anybody who wants to take a deeper dive can go into the appendix and find more details there. In terms of the community profile, this is really, as Keith said, a snapshot of your community as it stands today. We typically use census data and parcel data and a couple of other different sources to compile relevant and important information for the town. So starting off your community profile, we've first identified its geographic context. So the town of Manlius It's in Onondaga County. It has 3 different villages, and we also summarize the history of the town. Then we go over some key data points. So first, looking at population, a couple of important things to note here. The town of Manlius has had a relatively stable population over the last 20 years. This is quite different than 2 of the villages of Fayetteville and Manlius, which have seen a decrease in population over the past 10 years. Looking at age trends, we're seeing something that aligns with national population trends, which is an aging senior population, so 65 years and plus. On a national scale, we're seeing this age group increase, and Manlius is not alone in that. Manlius is also experiencing this increase in 65 plus communities. So along with that, we'll have to think about, what type of senior services and housing might be necessary, types of communities that allow, senior residents to age in place, and those sorts of topics. Looking at housing, another national trend reflected in the village or the town of Manlius is a decrease in owner occupancy rates. We are seeing rentals becoming a bit more popular across the United States, and that's also been seen in the town of Manlius. Across the town and villages, their owner occupancy rate has dropped by a few percentages from 2000 to 2020. Comparing the town to the villages, the town has the lowest vacancy rate and also the youngest housing stock. And then looking at employment and earnings, we did a comparison to the county overall. One important thing to note here is that the poverty rate of both the town and villages combined is quite a bit lower than the county. And there is quite a bit of drastic difference between the median household income between the villages and town. So just some interesting comparisons to see there in terms of employment and earnings across different regional scales. We also took a look at industry data for the town of Manlius. I think this is a neat graphic to show in a comprehensive plan. What it's showing you is the number of residents who are living and working in Manlius versus the number of people who are living outside of Manlius but commuting into the town to work, and also the number of residents in Manlius who are leaving the town to find work elsewhere. And interestingly, the majority of employed town and village residents leave to attend a job elsewhere, and that's 83.8%. So quite a lot of travel outwards of the town and village to find employment elsewhere. On that same note, however, we also noticed that the jobs in the town of Manlius and the jobs held by Manlius residents are very similar. So looking at this graphic, we're seeing the same types of industries, whether people are working in the town or going elsewhere to find employment. So that kind of makes an interesting question of why are people going elsewhere to find employment? Perhaps that would be something that could be interesting to look into at a deeper level. We also reviewed some environmental conditions, though I expect that this section might be amended a little bit based on the climate action plan that's also being developed. But as of this point, we have reviewed the distribution of tree canopy and impervious surfaces throughout the town. And we also looked at the location of wetlands and floodplains. And those are interesting to look at because while wetlands and floodplains provide a lot of environmental benefits, they also can pose some challenges to future development. So thinking about comprehensive planning and future land uses, wetlands and floodplains can be a really useful environmental condition to take a look at. We also have developed a section on public infrastructure. Here we're focusing on transportation. I'm sure, as you all are aware, there are a number of major thoroughfares throughout Manlius that connect it to some significant regional assets like City of Syracuse and the Finger Lakes region. It's right along the thruway, so you're hitting a lot of major cities. So we did a little analysis of your annual average daily traffic, so you can take a look at the distribution of traffic throughout the town and on some of those major thoroughfares. And then in terms of what we plan to cover next in the community profile, we will be doing a land use analysis. We just received this data from the county today. So we'll be creating a land use map of the town, kind of looking at the distribution of residential versus commercial versus industrial uses, and also the distribution of your parks and open and natural spaces. And we'll be creating a narrative to go along with that as well. And then finally, we have included a section on your zoning code in the community profile. So this outlines the different zoning districts within the town and the types of uses that are allowed in each district. And then for the residential, we also looked at the bulk and dimensional requirements within your zoning code. So how large does a lot have to be? What's the setback? What uses are permitted? And how much open space could be required. And this will be interesting to compare to your future land use as well to see, or I'm sorry, your existing land use map as well to see if your zoning districts are aligning with the existing land use distribution throughout the town. So that is the community profile as it stands today. As I mentioned before, this is going to be updated and changed and amended over the next few months. But I hope it was helpful to see a brief introduction and where that is going. Does anybody have any comments so far on the community profile or any questions? Keith, you're muted.
Yep, see that. The other thing too that I think just is important for people to know, if they don't already, is that while part of the community profile is sort of a summary of input gathered to date from the community, residents, stakeholders, focus groups, what have you, the report document in the end will have a part of the appendices will be sort of an elaborate summary of all of the information that we've collected. So again, while the community profile is a snapshot of things, basically I would say it's sort of an executive summary of your existing conditions. All of the data that we've collected and the supporting information coming from residents and stakeholders and your neighbors will all be provided as sort of the public record in the appendix. So again, just in case everybody doesn't see everything in the community profile, it'll be available for public review at any time.
And if you guys are aware of other kinds of studies or reports that some other entity did that you became aware of, that the school district did a study on something or the village did a study on something that would be relevant to this, please make Grace and Keith aware of that, because we want to be sure that we're collecting. If somebody else has already done the work, we want to make sure we're just collecting that input. So for example, I know that there's a traffic study happening in the village of Manlius right now that would be very relevant to what we're going to be talking about. And so it would make a lot of sense to connect Keith and Grace with the SMTC and just make sure that if they're going to be suggesting something major about Route 92, that the town's comprehensive plan knows that. So I think those are the kinds of things, if you're aware of things that have been happening, and I do have something for you. It is specific to the village, but the village of Fayetteville had an outside analyst do a study of historic buildings that is fairly recent, and I can get that for you. But that's an example of something that it could have some input in terms of just knowing some significance of historic places that are within the town, that are also within a village, but they are within the town. So
I would ask Marissa and Kay to let us know what they think could be relevant from the school districts. Do you think that their capital plans, or is there anything that should be considered by the town? For example, I know that that FM is endeavoring to have a large solar project, and I know that the village is actually also looking at a solar project. So I'm just curious to know if you have specific things in mind that we should be gathering.
I know that question was for Kay or Marissa, but I think from our standpoint, what generally would be of interest to us within the context of a comprehensive plan are things like, if there's certain schools that are going to be consolidated or maybe closed, or things that impact things more on a community level. So if, like I said, if there's a capital sort of restructuring where, like I said, some schools might be shifting students to other schools, which could impact traffic patterns and things like that, where kids are walking, that type of stuff. Of course, infrastructure projects, if there's things that are going to be maybe enhanced or improved to, like I said, improve safety, on the periphery of school grounds, certainly we'd like to know those. A lot of that information we also will get from the SMTCs, county highway, DOT, and we'll be talking with all of those agencies as well. So, as part of our understanding of, any potential projects that may be funded in the future, if they're not already, we're going to want to understand those. And again, start to think about, okay, well, if there's a project for a certain roadway, what kind of impacts would that have or benefits would that have on, nearby arterials or collector roads and things like that. So, when it comes to schools or even other types of facilities, it's really just a matter of, what are the types of things that would shift, pieces of your population that would impact other infrastructure. That's one example I think I can think of.
Well, we don't have any plans to close any buildings or consolidate any buildings or move
I
large.
didn't think so.
I
I didn't think so.
know that.
We have had that as an instance, though. That's why it came up.
We know that SMTC, I think, just like you said, and DOT can cover some of the things that are coming up that I'm thinking about, like the traffic in front of the ESM district related to increased truck traffic from the new warehouses.
Yeah.
And the influx of international cargo into the Dwight rail yard, things like that. So that's
Yep.
going to show up in other places, I think.
Okay. Any other comments on the community profile? Oh, all right. And we will be covering the community profile again in future meetings. You'll see in our next step sections, we'll talk about that a bit more. All right, so the next section of your comprehensive plan will be your vision and goals framework, and that's really what we're going to get into today. We're going to facilitate some breakout sessions in Zoom, which will hopefully give you all the opportunity to talk with each other a bit more, collaborate, and do some brainstorming. So I think you all received the workbook in advance of this meeting, and I was hoping to put it in the chat, but it looks like I do not have access to the chat. So let me.
Would you like me to go ahead and end the live stream, since we're going to head into breakout rooms and do that now? Sarah,
Sure.
I don't know if you want to say anything in closing to our live stream
Actually,
viewers.
let's go to the next slide before we close the live stream, because it talks about the vision and goals, and then we'll close it.
Okay, great. Just let me know.
Thank you.
All right. So this vision and goals framework, which we're going to discuss in a bit more detail in breakout groups, is intended to give direction in future policy and decision making throughout the town. And these typically take the form of this structure like you're seeing on the screen. So vision, then policy and goals, then objectives, then recommendations or action items. So the vision is the most general component of your framework, and the recommendation action items are the most specific. So your vision is intended to last you quite a few years in the duration of your comprehensive plan. It's typically a brief, few sentence description of what the town envisions for its future. And again, we don't expect the vision to change throughout the life of a comprehensive plan. A policy or goal is a little bit more specific. It typically covers a specific topic, such as environment and resources, or government operations, or transportation. And then an objective fits underneath a policy or goal and provides even more specificity. Objectives typically include words like increase or decrease or promote, some sort of action item that is measurable, but still not a specific action item. Then underneath objectives, you have recommendations and action items, which can vary in length or implementation time, ranging from a few weeks to a few years. And those are really specific plans, programs, or policies that help to achieve one of your objectives. So I'll go through a couple of examples of vision frameworks just to give you an idea of how other communities have, developed this framework and put it into their plan. So this is a Town of Lafayette's vision and policy framework. As you can see, their their vision is just a few sentences long, and then they used goals, objectives, and action items. So this is very similar to the framework laid out here. On the other hand, the city of Fulton decided to only include two different policies, municipal foundations and community enhancements. And rather than having a list of action items, they actually embedded every action item underneath an objective. So it's just a different way to frame your action items and your objectives. You can either have them each as their own separate list, or you can embed action items underneath specific objectives. Then looking at the town of Brighton, they kind of took this a step further, and they associated each one of the recommendations with one or more objective items. So they developed this kind of matrix framework where an action item might satisfy, more than one objective, which is often the case. So these are just three different ways to look at the vision and goals framework. They all follow this vision, policy and goal, objective, recommendation, action item process, and this kind of funneling of general to specific, but there are different ways to outline this. And of course, as we get more into the development of Manlius's vision, goals, objectives, and action items, we'll have a better idea of which format makes the most sense for your community.
Yeah, and just for the, if people are interested in maybe going online and checking some of these out, this document that's on the screen right now actually is a good example of how a climate smart plan was integrated within the comp plan. So when we developed the recommendations that are seen here, that made sense to us to the best that we could try and tie specific actions or recommendations to objectives, because of the way the Climate Smart Communities program likes to monitor and measure results over time. So that's why we did it that way with Brighton's comprehensive plan, which again will be similar to Manlius once we sort of roll in the climate smart components of your recent grant into your comp plan. But we don't need to do it that way. You don't need to tie those like that if it's not preferable.
Okay, so I think this is a good point to stop the live stream.
Okay, I'll do that now.
Thank you.